Welcome all to a Little Bit of SaaS and our very first episode for 2026, where I'm joined by a bit of an industry celebrity, if I might say so myself, who goes by the name of Phil Meyer. Phil is a technology industry leader with over 34 years under his belt at Microsoft, and since being made redundant due to AI, controversial, right? He is now the founder of his own consulting company called Catalyst 345, where he helps businesses navigate the world of Microsoft and its ever-evolving changes. Phil's career is vast and it spans across product management, technical strategy, and partner engagement. He's also been a key force in shaping licensing models and driving innovation in the technology space. In this episode, you'll hear Phil's reflections on his transition out of Microsoft and into entrepreneurship, his thoughts on adapting to personal and professional change, and the lessons he's learned about work-life balance, family, and personal growth. We discuss the evolution of technology over the decades, the importance of AI on careers and businesses, and practical advice for thriving through such disruption. Phil also shares personal stories about resilience and the importance of community and how to find meaning and joy in your work and your life. We only had the luxury of a 1-hour episode with Phil, but I know you're going to love the stories and insights that he so transparently shared with us, from everything from his inception to the technology world to where he is today. I won't take any more spoilers from you, but Phil Meyer, this is your life. Inviting you into today is a little bit of a peek behind the curtains to your story. Like, I would love to know a little bit about this is your life, right? Like, you've lived a long career within the technology space, including 35 plus years at Microsoft, which recently came to an end. So I'd love to know a little bit about where you are now in your journey, and then we can kind of wind the clock back and see where you came from.
Well, now the last 3 months since leaving Microsoft has been there's an expression called Sarah. I guess people have heard of Sarah: shock, anger, rejection, and then acceptance. And I've reached that acceptance stage. I was shocked when I was made redundant. I really was. And for a period of time, I was angry. If I'd say anything to the listeners, if this happens to you, take a holiday. It really helps you to settle your mind, to get over that shock, that anger, and that rejection of it, and then grow to accept where you are. So subsequently, in that acceptance, creating my own little company of one, with a very passionate wife supporting me, and the support of my children has been tremendous in taking the risk of going out on my own. I could have gone to a partner, I could have gone into employment somewhere else, but I thought, no, I want to give what I've got as my strengths and focus on giving that back to the community with which I've worked very strongly over 35 years at Microsoft, but really in the last 17 years, the partner community so much. And so it has been really exciting the last, let's say, 6 weeks to 8 weeks, running workshops and sitting on panel sessions and speaking engagements as a keynote even, has been kind of, to me, I had a bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't know if I could do this. And then you're put in the spotlight, you're given that opportunity. And it's sometimes really good for you to go outside your comfort zone, to be pushed outside your limits, and then look back and go, wow, I grew from that. I'm 65 and still learning and growing. So I'm in a great place.
Yeah, it's such a growth mindset, isn't it? And until the day we die, we always grow, don't we? And I love that you've adopted that mindset through such recent change, which was quite triggering for you in some, with the anger and the denial and all those stages of perhaps it's grief, right? It sounds like, which, I think it's important to note for anyone going through any change, right? I'm curious to know a little bit about, okay, well, you've been at Microsoft for 35 years and now you're doing your own thing. What was your role at Microsoft and what's your role now? I mean, I know, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Oh, wow. Look, on that one, Renan, I could go back to the beginning. I've had numerous roles. Let's start at the end and maybe work backwards to the beginning. In my last sort of 7 or 8 years, I was called a technology strategist. It kind of sat between the technical people inside the business, the people who are the partner development managers working with various different distributors and channel partners, and also looking at the operational side, because Microsoft's a pretty complex beast. So my role was translating, as it were, being an interpreter between each of those, and sharing with partners, making Microsoft simpler for them. Of course, with the age of AI, now they just have to go to Copilot and ask the question. So in many respects, my role became redundant, I think, because of artificial intelligence, the ability for those teams to ask the questions and get that interpretation, that translation, that simplification done for them without the need for my role. And in fact, all my peers in that capacity were made redundant at the time. So if I roll back... But you were going to say something. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so we understand sort of where you're at now. So that's what maybe the last 5 to 8 years looked like for you, and a lot of the sort of the disruption of AI, and then now, and consequently, it's perhaps been one of the key factors that made you redundant, it sounds like. And then now you're doing your own thing. So what are you doing now with your company? I'll let you introduce your company.
It's funny you say that. I'm actually doing the same things I used to do.
Right.
But very much down with the people and talking, because with all this technology, I do think you need to humanize it. And so that humanization is what I've been doing in the last 6 to 8 weeks, is going and meeting partners face to face and sharing with them the news that Microsoft has. And surprisingly, in the vast majority of cases, they don't have time to listen to the various broadcasts and webcasts and newsletters that come. So when I sit with them and explain it to them, they go, I didn't know that. Thank you for coming and telling me that. So in my role, I don't do that for free. I come in and I do that for a fee, and they're willing to pay. And the joy they get out of the learning they get out of it themselves, they go, this is so much better than me trying to digest 6 different fire hydrants from Microsoft. You've distilled that down into a very nice cafe latte that I can enjoy in the time I spend with you.
Yeah, so it's like expert consulting, right? Through what we could call a beast, right? Like, because Microsoft is huge, and the posts are always changing, and it's very hard to keep up. So you're sort of engaged on a personable level where people can talk to you in real time, rather than have to dig through all the information that's forever changing, right? So it's kind of akin to like a personal trainer, maybe, like, to put it in layman's terms. Anyone can learn how to lift a weight, but it's having a personal trainer there to talk to and to be coached and consulted through and to support, and that. Is it a little bit kind of like that?
It is a bit like that. And it's in that initial conversation, understanding where they want to go as a partner, and then matching the training to where they want to go. No point putting them on a weights machine if they want to do distance cycling. There might be a little bit of weights, but let's get their muscles and the legs and their tenure up to be able to deal that sort of training. So knowing from the time I spent with Microsoft, and frankly, I now spend half my time listening to webinars and podcasts and the like from Microsoft and distilling that down. You may know that for 17 years, the last 17 years at Microsoft, I was running a webinar every month. 17 years, thousands of subscribers. And I was doing that function of distilling the information down for them each month across those dimensions I mentioned, the licensing, the technologies, the events that are coming up, way to get skilled. And I thought, nobody's going to pick that up. So I picked it up myself, and I'm doing it myself. And I'm getting tens of people, even at Christmas time, breaking 100 people turning up just pre-Christmas to get that distillation of all that information. So as I say, half a day, every day of the week, I'm just consuming and listening and trying to simplify all that stuff that comes out of Microsoft, so that then these partners can turn up to a free, no fee, webinar every month, and I digest that down into an hour. So it's concentrated coffee instead of, too much.
I love that. So your company is called Catalyst
345.
Now,
so
why is it not 365? Tell us.
A lot of people ask, why isn't it 365? And it's not because they've got 20 holidays in the year to make it 345. It comes from 34 and a half years at Microsoft. So that's actually the exact number. It was 34 and a half years, almost to the day from when I joined to when I was my last day was 34 and a half years, so 3, 4, 5. And it was a catalyst. The fact that I was made redundant was a catalyst for me to go and say, what am I going to do? Prior to that, it had been, if we go back in the time to your original question, it had been pretty easy. There was a comfort in being in a family that was Microsoft. And a little sidebar on that, when I left, one of the comments I made is, I'm not leaving the family, I'm just leaving the house. And I still feel that very much in my DNA, that I'm a Microsoft family member, but I'm on the outside of the house now. Although they do invite me into One Denison quite frequently, which is good. I get to go and have, Christmas dinner with them, sort of thing.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you're still part of the family, just not in the house permanently. Yeah.
So 17 years of doing those webinars, and they've been reborn. I'll do my 4th webinar in January. Just trying to settle on the date. That's why I was a bit distracted. I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be late January or February with my daughter coming in from London. And that's, a dimension that we'll get to maybe in the conversation, the importance of family. Prior to being a tech strategist, so I was mentioning it was kind of easy. I'd done a solution technology role for hosting. Yeah, there was this thing called SPLA. And I was SPLA, Service Provider License Agreement, which is something that I was one of the designers for back in 2000 when we saw this idea of subscription licensing. So I was the international representative, invited to talk with a couple of Americans to design the contracts. So please don't throw stones at me. Some of the listeners out there might know SPLA and go, it was him. That's SPLA. He kept saying it was the most refreshing licensing program from Microsoft. It was a disaster. It was so frustrating. And then there were some mistakes. Look, admittedly, there were some mistakes made in the design of that program, but it did spawn what we now know as the subscription models for Microsoft. So when you think of Office 365 becoming Microsoft 365, the way Azure works, it was those early days, 2000, so 25 years ago, in that design that is now what is formative to the idea of monthly payments and utility payments. Prior to that, I'd done some wacky stuff like mobile phones from Microsoft, Windows Mobile. I'd done Commerce Server. I'd run teams, 20 people, talking to application developers, so running the unit, which was called ADCU, Application Developer Customer Unit. And we'd run around the country and use universities to go and tell hundreds of people how to write programs in Visual Basic and Visual C++. And another unit that I was running at the same time with about half a dozen people in it doing Internet Custom Unit, ICU. And the ICU was all about getting people to use the browsers, and Microsoft technology is the web servers and databases to support the data that sat behind those web servers as well, talking with telcos. Prior to that was being a business development manager for broadband. Why would Microsoft care about broadband? Because they were working on a project called Interactive TV. This is kind of before the internet. They thought that the way in which people were going to get the next generation of television was via this technology called ATM and fibre to the curb, and a set-top box would sit in the home and it would put up TV signals and you could overlay that. Used to run training sessions here to teach really smart media developers when it was the CD era about using those skills in CD design to create applications that would work on these set-top box. Guess what those set-top boxes became?
Obsolete.
No, they did specifically, but a lot of the engineering became the Xbox.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
So, because it's Microsoft Xbox. Yeah.
So that became the software, the microkernel behind that design, and some of the design principles that were shared at that time, more about entertainment and media streaming, actually became a gaming platform, as we know now as the Xbox. Prior to that, I'd been a product manager. So maybe I'll go right to the beginning. I was the first product manager in Australia for what was considered the complex products when I was hired. We don't know how to deal with these things, Phil. Can you come and help us? Operating systems like OS2 and databases like SQL Server. The listeners now would go, oh gosh, 34 and a half years ago, they were pretty basic. But learning how to configure using heuristics and zeros and ones to set up the installs rather than PowerShell scripts and the like. And so when you've got a product manager for Word and a product manager for Project and a product manager for Excel and one for DOS, they said, we will hire you, bit of a risk, because we're not sure about this complex stuff, which is now so day-to-day at Microsoft. It's so mundane. It's like, that's so yesterday, Phil. But it is really the grassroots of what we now know as Azure and Microsoft 365 and Windows 11 and so many other things that, Windows 11 is not DOS powered anymore. It's really that origins of OS 2 version 3, which became Windows NT 3.1. So that was a long answer to a short question, but it's a very rich set of roles: team management, sales management, technical team management, product development. Was involved in the product development of a number of products. We even got the Shepard Award for, naming lights on that. So it's pretty cool. Good memory lane. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, look, it's exciting to sort of like hear just a snapshot of, I guess, the pieces of the puzzle of your journey. And it sounds like a lot of it has been kind of mixed between product development and management, and also a lot of client facing consulting and educating and that.
It was, and much of it was also very compete. I'm a competitive guy. I like my tennis. Like to get out there and make sure my ball goes over the net sort of thing and in. But yeah, it was very competitive. So given the responsibility of taking on Novell NetWare, some people might remember that brand, but I was specifically tasked with competing with that, and it was pretty tough. But having people like Bill Gates come to town and sit with me for hours and talk through what was happening to make the product better, give me the encouragement, support to take on the battle, even though our market share was like 2% against the other guy, and then eventually get to the point, I recall it was 1994 in Canberra, and the Novell management team of Australia were in the back row, and I knew Roger and the team, and I just had to wave to them and say, nice to see the Novell guys are seeing the future here today. And it was very quickly from there that their share just went down, and the Microsoft share for LAN Manager, which became Windows NT, just shot up. And then I guess on the back of that, it was not Bill so much as Steve Ballmer came and tapped me on the shoulder and say, we've got this challenge for you. It's called Netscape Navigator. So we want you to take on the Internet Explorer battle for us in Australia and New Zealand. Subsequently, that got me in a bit of trouble with the Department of Justice. Some of the things that we did back then were a little naughty. So some of the offers that were made to start giving out Internet Explorer versus the other guy's product. If you're interested, go and read this transcripts from the consent. There's 3 of my emails that are in there about things that I was asked to did, and in hindsight, they were the wrong things to do, according to the Department of Justice.
Wow. I never knew some dirty laundry would have surfaced in this conversation, Phil. Well, I mean, you've already navigated where people can find more information on that, so we won't dive into that too much. But that's fascinating. Way back to the early 90s we're talking now. There's been this huge, and I just want to let you know, I was born in 1990, Phil. So none of this is on my radar. So this is news to me. All those early 90s discussions of how you got from DOS to Windows XP, I think it was next. I don't know. Technology came on the radar for me in terms of Microsoft when I was maybe 10. So 2000, which was when you were in the States. I think you were saying.
I always worked in Australia. One of the questions I often get is, well, if you've been there 34 and a half years, why are you still in Australia? And it's because this is a great country to live. I grew up in Papua New Guinea, and so I was a bit of a 13 schools kid, being bouncing around various different places and different schools, and it wasn't military, it was to do with Dad and his role and car sales and distribution, and so we'd move up and around based on that. But I never wanted my children to have that 13 schools in their life. I wanted to give them some stability. Even though I wasn't around a lot, must confess, I'd watched the sunrise many a time at Microsoft, and I wouldn't get home till late. But yeah, so never moved. Certainly got the office to work in Seattle to go and help create new offices in various different Latin American countries and Southeast Asian countries. And I said, no, I want to stay here, and I won't take the pay rise and the share allocations. I'm very, very happy living in this wonderful country. Based on last weekend, though, we've still got some learning to do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think, hearing part of that kind of makes me curious about a few aspects of your life, Phil. You mentioned you grew up in Papua New Guinea and you had a certain life that was somewhat disruptive, changing schools all the time, perhaps not overly connected with, parents, family, because there was a lot of change all the time and disruption, and how that's kind of segued into your role as a parent, and then how that also is influenced by how much work you put into Microsoft. Like there's an aspect of, clear values of wanting stability for your children over the years, but also there's a bit of a reflection there of, well, maybe I wasn't also at home because I was working so much. So, obviously, this is the hardest thing to nail, right? How can you be the most available for your children whilst also providing for them because you have to work? Like, it's a tough one. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's it like reflecting on that right now? And what's the most important part that stands out for you?
I would think, and it is hard, sorry, I'm finding it hard to find my words, and that's not usually me. And I think it does reflect that I made mistakes. I made mistakes in not giving time to my family that I should have in the 90s. And probably the biggest wake-up call was one of those evenings when I did get home in a weekday before the sun went down, and the children, when they were only young, freaked out. They go, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. We're not used to," and it kind of disrupted the harmony and the routine that existed in the home, because suddenly I'm home. And that was a sad, tragic wake-up call to me, to think that kids didn't know that I was there anything other than a weekend dad. And I lived in the same house, but I was gone before they got up, and I got home when they were already in bed. And that changed me. And the opportunity was there to what am I going to do? So Saturdays became like Dad and the girls going down to the swim club. And that was so good, not only healthy for us to have a swim, but it was so good for them to start to build connections with different age groups, because not all of the swimmers are the same age as them. They'd have people my age standing on the blocks, daring them and challenging them to reach the end of the pool faster, and that they could have that conversation with somebody. It really developed their character, of different religions, of different races. That whole mixed environment that was in the pool was wonderful. There was no barriers. We were all there to swim. We were of a like mind. Let's jump in the pool and see who gets to the end fastest. So that was beautiful. It also gave me the opportunity to develop with them, being a debating coach. So I really like public speaking, and debating as part of that. And so being their coach and being there, during school hours, I'm out of here. I'm going to go and do public speaking with my children. I'm going to go and debating coach for them. They'd have swim club. It would be me who'd be jumping in the pools, rescuing 3 kids who said they knew how to swim and they ended up on the bottom of Epping Pool and dragging them back up again. But those things I shouldn't have waited 10 years into Microsoft to do. They should have been something I'd done much, much sooner than I did. Fortunately, I think I saved it. My girls are wonderful. I believe I love them, they love me, and I'm putting more time into their grandchildren. Sadly, 2 of them live in London. 2 of them are a little bit further away, 40-minute drive from where we live. But wherever we can, whenever we can, get together with them and spend that time. There's so much joy. And look, the joy isn't... Another point, if I may. My wife had this really good line: keep them busy, keep them poor. So being involved in different activities creates incredible resilience, I think. And for me, growing up, that resilience came from I was on my own. So I had to find things to do. I did that on my own, whether it was tennis or cricket or rugby or going to school or building things with wood. I would find that on my own. And I also wish that I'd had other groups to do that with, because living in remote parts and different schools, it was really hard to create those connections. So to me, it was so good when the wife said, keep them busy. And it was like, right, they're doing netball. Okay. They're doing music. Okay. They're doing debating and public speaking, and their swim club as well. And point I'm trying to make there is the resilience comes from having these different groups that are in different stages of their life. Some days they're having a bad day with one group. They can go to any of those other groups and there's joy, right? They don't have to stew in that unhappy place. They can move to a happy place. And that's great. And my encouragement is do that. The keep them poor point is they got to respect what money. I think that and value in effort and reward. So even though we could have given them things, they still went and cut off heads of chickens at the chicken shop and cleaned out kitchens and did all sorts of things to earn their money. And I think, keep them poor, keep them busy.
Yeah, and I think as I'm listening, I'm hearing some things that could be valuable for listeners to sort of take from this. But first, I just want to sort of reflect on what you've shared, because it does sound like there's a really strong family value for you that, and some of the things you've shared about your wife with me, just about how beautiful and how beautiful over time your relationship has been with your wife, and how these intentions of how you want to raise your children have surfaced over the years. I mean, it's so beautiful and it's so authentic, and I love that you're being transparent with me and with us around that. And I guess like some takeaways from people listening might be, well, you mentioned I should have done this better, or I should have done that. I mean, my coaching and counseling hat says you could reframe that with like I could have done this differently, because it's happened now, right? You can't change the past. So should is a very judgmental word. Perhaps it's I could have done better, which is more of a forward thinking. You can do more now with grandchildren and whatnot, right? So that's my coaching counseling hat. The other question I guess that might be helpful for listeners is, well, if someone's listening and they're going through a period similar to that period that you had, where you felt like you needed to be there at sunrise at Microsoft till sunset, and then the weekends were just full on kids time. So it's a full on track switch. And, because sometimes coming home early from work was a disruption to the family unit because they're not familiar with you being there. And it's not because you were intentionally absent or anything. It was because you're trying to prioritize, career and bringing in resources. So what's some takeaways that people might be able to take that your story presents there?
That's a great question. I do recall the times I would find it very hard to do that switch. And I'd get so frustrated when it would take me 15 minutes to form an idea in my head, and I'm trying to get it out, and I get a knock on the door. And there's the idea gone. And I've got to try and reframe where I'd got it. And I guess I've just trained myself, A, to not get frustrated about it, and B, find that ability to switch quicker, to retain a small fragment in a temporary memory space, to be able to hydrate that again and grow it very quickly. I'm not saying that's possible for everybody, but if you can just at least remove the frustration in that moment when you're interrupted and deal with it, be positive. I know that I'm still working on that and I could be better at it. Trying to learn from you.
Good work. I like that. Immediate feedback taken on board. I love that. Okay, so let's pause on that for just a moment, because before you go into some more valuable points. So on that point, it sounds like it's around more of an approach to your emotional state on being more responsive and less, let's call it, reactive. So if you're deep in process, or deep in flow rather, and someone knocks on the door and interrupts that, like it sounds like there was a frustration that was that was shown in that moment. But now it's more about like kind of filtering or having a bit of a stopgap there to park the idea, address the person or the need, and respect that maybe it is important enough to disrupt your flow, and then come back to it later.
I don't think I could frame it any better than what you just said. I think that's very much what it is showing respect for that person, particularly a partner, a life partner.
Okay. So you're talking personally only, or personally and professionally?
I would say professionally, but
both.
I don't know that in professional life there were that too many interruptions, particularly when it's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's not a lot of people interrupting you at that time, and maybe that's why I worked at 3 o'clock in the morning, because there weren't those interruptions. Okay. But then when the hybrid workplace came about and we're working at home and there's a knock on the door, dinner's ready, that idea's gone. Right. Learning, isn't that nice? She's made me dinner. I should really just put that down and go and have that. I can do this at 10 o'clock tonight. She's gone to bed. I'll hydrate that idea then. And maybe it'll even be clearer because I've had something to eat, a nice glass of red wine, had a bit of a chat, relaxed the mind. And more often than not, I learnt that it was better to, rather than frustrate myself in that time and trying to get it done by 6 o'clock because dinner was coming, it was good to get the knock on the door. And of course, we can also talk about the fact when AI came along, I was finishing before 6 o'clock.
True.
It made my productivity so much greater that I actually got like hours back, and still get hours back thanks to AI.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of that personal I guess, like home life kind of hybrid, like setting where that sits more of a prevalence of, like, I guess, setting expectations as well with maybe your partner or your children even, and knowing that, hey, if the door's closed, don't interrupt. If it's open, I'll be working, but you can interrupt. And then there's, you know what I mean? So it's just setting some guidelines and clear, I don't know, expectations around it.
And I could have done that better too.
There you go. Okay. So people listening, maybe a bit of an intentional growth in that space over the next few months of life to just sort of improve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So on that point, any other valuable points that you want to share about people who feel like they're just tied to their work and you know, because I've seen a lot of people in this corporate space that will work themselves to the bone, feeling like they've got like a true, you know, connection and reputation and everything to uphold, and the cost, the more you pour into work, the cost of everything else in your life starts to go down, right? Because you're only one person. You can only do so much.
I feel that I've always done things that brought me joy in terms of the work I do. And I was very enthusiastic to do it. Technology is a joy to me, to work with technology, and the dynamism of that change, the way it's evolving so rapidly, excites me even more. So I don't know I've ever had a job that I felt was hard. Well, hard fun, if that's an expression. It was difficult working those hours, yes, but I was taking joy in that journey too. So if you're not getting joy, maybe that's the time to find something else. Go and do something you like to do. And the best thing, you know, that acceptance in the Sarah, I accept that I'm now doing what I like doing. There were certain things that I had to do in the old job that were frustrating. You know, certain meetings you'd have to attend. You go, oh gosh, this is a bit boring. This is not exciting. This is not the best use of my time. And I don't have to do those anymore. I do the things in the day that I enjoy doing. And even now, in this new role, I've been approached to go and do things. And I've said no, because they're not things that are going to be joyful to me. They're not things that enrich me, that help me grow, that help me learn, that I'm not teaching other people in that process. So I've had, on a number of occasions, said, thank you very much, respectfully, but not where I'm at. Yeah, that's hard to do when you're an employee, though, I know.
Yeah. It would definitely be hard, but also if you're an employee, you know, you have a choice of what company you work for and what the requirements are of that, and what the you know, alignment with your, let's call it, life mission or purpose, right? Because when you talk about joy, what I think about is, well, if you think about positive emotions, you've got happiness and joy, and then there's all sorts of hedonistic happiness, which we know has a cost, right? And so I think the depth to that is delayed gratification and instant gratification. Now, when we think about work is delayed gratification, right? Like you mentioned, there are things you don't really want to do all the time, boring meetings and admin tasks.
Correct.
I mean, maybe not so much anymore with admin because of AI.
I don't know. I'm doing a small business now and invoicing's a pain.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, like when we think of delayed gratification, it's like, well, I know that there's a long-term benefit to my actions and my commitment to work.
Yes.
But it's going to be a tricky path and it's effort, right? But that's where the joy comes in my opinion.
If I can take another perspective on this, there's an interesting thing that my wife and I had, like courting, figuring out where you want to be, where you want to live, how many children you want to have, etc. The one question I didn't ask is, what's your definition of success? And we'd been married. We had a little 18-month-old. I was working in London at the time. And my mate who was hosting us, we're sitting around having a nice glass of French wine. And this concept of success came up as a discussion around the kitchen table. And the wife's perspective was very different to mine, I found out that night. Oh, you're going to have 3,000 people working for you. You're going to be a CEO, general manager in a company, you know, multinational. Whoa, hang on. That's not my definition of success. Mine was the contentment I had when I finished a day's work, that I'd made a difference to other people's lives. And that's a big difference between the two. And so we spent quite a bit of time reconciling that, trying to figure out, okay, how can I come some way to where she was, and hence being a team manager for a while. And her coming to somewhere where I was. She started doing some charity work and running different events for cancer councils and things like that. And in that journey, both of us kind of going outside from where our definitions were, we both learnt something on the journey and came closer together.
Yeah, and that comes back to kind of a similar thing of what we were talking about earlier with family values and just aligning on communication, right? Like, you know, you can communicate and align on, well, this brings me joy because this is my value and this is my life's purpose, and then what's yours, and then how can we come together to enhance that in a partnership or marriage or whatever, right? In that intimate home setting. When it comes to the relationship with work, it's very interesting to me when people describe what they do and why they do it, because often people don't have what I would say a deep enough answer. Not an accurate enough answer, but a deep enough answer.
See, I saw your post on LinkedIn the other day where you've been doing that work with nonprofits. That brought me joy.
Right.
Because nonprofits and the work that your organisation has been doing in that space, they're the ones that I read in depth. When I can see people giving of their time for nothing financial, but just purely to make it better for people who've got accessibility issues or homelessness situations or personal crises in their life, that's the stuff that hits me more deeply. And I've shared with you the number of charity challenges that I've done in my life and the reward I get out of doing those. It hurts. It hurts a lot. Do some of that physically hurts, mentally hurts. But at the end of it, you see those who you're doing it for uplifted. So, yeah, I don't know if that helps, but, you know, there's certain things in a work life that you can find. I think I remember Emma Tomlin, who's a Microsoft person, I don't know if she still is, but her presenting at a Women in IT event and talking about what makes careers important, why do young people go to certain companies, and she talked very directly about it's not about the salary anymore, it's about what you can offer as an employer around non-profit and giving. And I thought, yeah, they're the sort of things that I aspire, and I don't know if I could do better because I put a lot of time into that area, and I still do. And so, yeah, that was one of those impressive moments to me was when Emma was sharing that with a group of people in IT.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like when we think of technology, right, they are tools to enhance all businesses and, you know, and people on personal level as well. But, you know, in the business to business sort of space, it's to enhance what they're trying to do to provide value, right? And so when we look at NFPs, like, of course, they're trying to provide value mostly to those less fortunate, right? Like that's what most of their sort of mission, you know, is. And what I love about working for Solentive, which brings me joy, is that we have values around, like, you know, we don't service tobacco companies or gambling or drinking. Like we are servicing the industries that are actually making positive change, you know, net positive for society in terms of that. So it's, it's really... Yep, that brings me joy to know that, like, some of those hard days where there's lots of admin task type things, it's, I rest my head at night feeling satisfied.
There's my success.
Yeah.
So if I've made a difference to other people's life in a positive way, that's a day that I can go to bed and sleep very peacefully. And I sleep most nights very peacefully, I must say.
Yeah, that must be the wine. Now, I want to track switch a little bit.
Okay.
I love getting that insight, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing some of your personal journey. I know a lot of people will take many things from that. One thing I'm curious about, Phil, is we are currently going through, over the last, let's say, 5 years, even though AI has been around a while, it's really surfaced in the last 3 to 5 years, probably more so in the last year and a half. It's been very disruptive. People are realizing that their data is not in order. They're realizing that the capability of adopting a wave of technology like AI is a huge change. Is there any other moment in time across your 35 odd years in this space where you've seen a similar massive disruption? And how did people adapt to that? How did you adapt to that?
Ooh, I think there have been many significant changes over history. You know, I love my history. I'm a deep reader of history. I read Wikipedia every day. You know, Today in History is another search that I do every day. But in my time, in my 47 years in the IT industry, there are a number of milestone moments that are probably standard out there. People know them. The microcomputer coming along. Yes, I was a mainframe mini computer person, and suddenly I'm presented with this little microcomputer with a keyboard and had more power than I had in the mainframe that was occupying a room next door. I went, wow, this is amazing. And it was so easy to connect things. The next one would have been the whole internet revolution, that Internet Explorer battle with Netscape Navigator. They were heady days, man. It's so basic back then. But just to be able to go home, instead of having a dial-up modem that connected to a specific computer, to now just connect to the internet and you're talking to computers all over the world, just blew my brain. I thought, this is so cool that I can just connect to different sites and get all this information.
So
and then,
for transparency and clarity, what year was that?
That would have been 95.
Okay. Right.
Admittedly, Mosaic came out in 93, I think it was. The first Tim Berners-Lee implementation of a HTTP service protocol with a HTML programming language or markup language. But then Microsoft and Netscape, really the heady days of 1995, as it was described by Bill Gates in his internal memo. It was the December 7, the Pearl Harbor Day for Microsoft, when they realized they had to turn the ship and re-engineer everything to the internet from where they'd been going with a completely different networking approach called the X models, the X25s, X400s. So that was big and major impact on the engineering units in Microsoft to shift from one model, telecommunications connect model, to what we now know as, it's everywhere, TCP/IP, HTML. The other one I would think of is what's doing our filming today, the mobile phone. It's not a camera anymore. Or is it a camera? Is it a phone? Is it a calendar? Is it a music device? It's so many things. And so when that thing came out in 2007 sort of time, when Apple did it, and when it just like groundbreaking stuff. And Microsoft had been mucking around with mobile phones earlier than that. As I said, 2000, I was working on Windows Mobile, but it was using the WAP protocol, which is basically glorified text messaging with some classic old Windows style menus on it, but to give that graphical touch interface to the device and to bring in the consumer-based services, not just business-based services, was to me probably as defining a moment, and the last defining moment to me, compared to where we happened with November 2022, which was the partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, and the billions of dollars between the two companies to create this widely available, easily consumable generative AI. And you're right, AI's been around since 1957. People were writing AI programs back then to track missiles and predict where missiles would land. And there was various different, anyway, we can go down a rabbit hole.
Don't worry, I've seen some movies.
You've seen some movies, yes.
Before my time.
Thermonuclear war, and let's play tic-tac-toe until the computer realizes there's no winners here. But exactly. that same sort of idea in the AI space and predictive maintenance on, Rolls-Royce engines on the bottom of Boeing 747s. We've had that AI for a long time, but that generative AI, and people don't tend to put the word generative out the front anymore. We just say AI. And we know that we're talking about ChatGPT or Copilot.
Well, that's the thing that I find that is the most misleading thing. Because when our customers or when I talk to people, they say AI, they don't realize that there's a difference, because they might say, oh, we want to adopt AI. But then it's like, well, what type of AI do you want to adopt? Is it Gen AI? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a bespoke AI tool or some sort of, there's so many different things. It's not just generative AI, right?
Correct. There are. And so often I've turned up to an event, but I'm conscious now of asking the question before going. So turning up to a group of manufacturers recently at a manufacturers council, I had to check. Now, you've said AI. Do you want to talk about AI for predictive maintenance, robotic process control, these sorts of things? Or do you want to talk about generative AI? Oh, no, we want to talk about robot control systems and how we can better automate remote monitoring and predictive maintenance on engine failure. Good, okay. And I'll put a little bit of Gen AI in there too for you. But yes, so important to just check your audience when they use the word AI. Maybe they are talking about, let's call it classic AI versus generative AI.
And because then there's even obviously there's different forms of open AI that is put into different things, right? Because it's not just Microsoft Copilot or what is it, Gemini or like all these other different ones, right? It's
Claude and Anthropics
exactly.
and ChatGPT and Propensity. There's 1,000. There's actually now, last time I checked in the Azure AI Foundry, was 11,900 LLMs out there. Wow. Mistral and all Da Vinci's and all these sorts of things that are 11,000 LLMs, which have got their own chat interfaces to them. The interesting thing is that, and sorry, you can't get the Microsoft out of me, mate. It still believes Microsoft.
You be you, Phil. I want you to be as authentic as you can.
Just amazing what they do in the Foundry and the development environment, that they make all those models available. And now they've got this model router, so it'll optimize the choice of which model will be behind it based on the golden triangle, which is cost, performance, and quality. And you're just going, this is just so far ahead of everybody else, what they're doing. And then also bringing with that ethics and the content safety. And I've seen horror stories out there where I've met people at various events and they've been really proud, puffed out their chest. Oh, we've got this system. We've bought it from an Australian software company and it has AI at the back and it's generative AI for booking hotel rooms. Fantastic. So can it be, this is my little test question, does it have multilingual support? Oh no, it's only in English, and that's the dead giveaway. Right. It's single language, it's a dead giveaway. They've used a back end, low cost, no content safety, no ethics, no responsibility. And I go, So, and then I test a little later and I go and do a query. Tell me all the people who are staying in your hotel on that evening between 6 and 8, and I get a list back. And then they suddenly realise, oops, this is not good, because if you're a burglar, I know exactly who's not at home. So those sorts of things are happening out there. So if anybody's out there, please don't think about using those low cost, no cost, pay with your data back ends if you're a software developer. And I appreciate as a software developer, you probably are anti-Microsoft. But please think about the users out there. Think about your clients. You want their data to be safe in the modern world, to be private, be ethical. We don't need hate speech. We don't need gender bias. We don't need racial bias. Please, no age bias. I'm old now.
Aren't you being age biased by saying that you're old?
Maybe
I would consider you young.
Oh, thank you. 65 and I'm young. Do you hear that, everybody? But that sort of stuff is there. Just use the Microsoft stuff at the back end. It's just switches and you turn it on and your program would be light up much quicker, and it's so much safer to consume than trying to build it yourself.
Well, that's the thing. Right? Well, a lot of the time we get people come to us thinking that they have to build something. But it's like, well, why would you? Because there's so many out-of-the-box things that not only is it like seamless to integrate it and everything, and it operates well and it's safe, but it's like you get the updates with it every time there's updates, right? Because that's what Microsoft are doing. Like, so part of the subscription that you're paying is getting those benefits. So if something breaks, it's not your problem, really. So a lot of the projects we get, actually, we not specifically on the AI, but a lot of broken legacy systems and whatnot, and people go, well, we want you to fix it. And it's like, well, why would we? Why don't you just come over to this?
Yeah.
Right?
That buy versus build decision still happens, and it's probably been amplified in the era of AI, where people are deciding to build their own. A classic one's in call centers at the moment. Microsoft has amazing call center technology called Dynamics 365 Digital Contact Center, and it's multilingual, and it can deal with omni-channel, online stores, it can deal with multiple languages, it can deal with WhatsApp and Snapchat, and under 16s can't use that stuff anymore, but it's incredible, and you can connect it into all these different ERP systems, non-Microsoft, CRM systems, non-Microsoft or Microsoft, connect it all, and you've got a call center. But others go, I want to be on my own. And that's fine. They roll their own. I mean, notably and very publicly, Commonwealth Bank has replaced what they had as a buy vendor for call center and recreated their call center in 5 months using Copilot Studio, connecting to all the different banking platforms. And I'm going, that's insane how they've done that in 5 months. Created this multilingual, multi-database, unified data using Fabric to tie it all together, and they own it. As I think the CEO says, and I might be paraphrasing, we have taken control of our call center back. Wow, the call center is the face of the bank nowadays, and that they've now got control of it is so cool. And I know the other banks are in the same path, the insurers, they're all doing that, and they're all using Microsoft security at the back end, because the security and the compliance and governance is there too. So yes, I might be out of Microsoft, but it's still in my blood.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I guess like to come back to the point earlier around like the change, it sounds like with the current change where we got to with the conversation around like being able to make such massive change within 5 months for a company like Commonwealth Bank. I'm sure there's many other examples like that with smaller companies that the change was just as big to scale to their company, right? And it seems like there's a lot of adaptability, and us as humans, we are built for change. We're changing all the time. But I'm curious are there any key takeaways from some of those other changes you talked about? And one of the things that stood out, maybe specifically, if you have some intel on this, is, and maybe because I remember this time, when the iPhone came in, that was a big change. As you were talking, I was like, I was only 16 or something at the time, but I loved it because I was a musician and I loved listening to music. And I remember walking around first with I did have a Walkman. I'm not old, but not young. I didn't have a Walkman for long, and it was only because I had older siblings. Then I had a CD player. Then I had an MP3 player. Then I got an iPod. And I remember when they introduced the iPhone, I was like, you are kidding me. Yeah. It can be all in the same space. I had to get one straight away.
Yeah, that's what I refer to, that 2007 date. I think that was the iPhone release date. And it just was earth-shattering to me that, wow, and so clever of Apple to have taken that journey of the mess, which was those MP3 players from all those different iRiver and those other brands that were out there at the time, and say, no, we're doing the music, and they had the music channel. But Apple's changed too. Where's iTunes gone now?
Yeah, well, Spotify probably has saturated them, right?
But that change, that they created that base change, but used an application on top, which was that iTunes, which to many was the key ingredient. Oh, and I can make phone calls while I'm doing a phone call, and knew to stop the music playing if I did get a phone
and
call.
I can have my favorite song play when different people call me. That was the best part.
Yeah, those sorts of things, the cool things that, wow, iPhone sales just went through. There are also some other clever things in terms of how they use the network versus and you watch the BlackBerry movie, and there's some really insightful stuff that comes from that in terms of just clever in terms of the business and commercials behind the iPhone, in terms of why the telecommunications carriers like that approach too. Anyway, that was a big one. And I think now with ChatGPT, which I think is now the new verb for Google search, and I see businesses that, they're de-investing on search engine optimization and finding ways in which they need to get their profile better through those consumer-based search engine, not search engines, but AI engines, Gen AI engines, is something that they're shifting their focus onto. With all these things too, I think of the implications on employment. I put my hand up some time ago about the fact that I became redundant because of AI, and I mentioned call centers. The dark side of that is that there's many people losing their jobs in the Philippines and India right now, as people are switching to call centers that are automated. It's a better experience for the user, as my wife and I found on a recent trip to Hawaii, and we had a flight delay. We could go into a chat system, and that particular airline had a really good chat system where it was powered by AI and looking at different resources in their business to give us guidance on what was possible, not that boring old classic option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4 being other. And if you put your question in,
go to the operator.
Yeah, and
go to the operator now.
You just type in, I want to talk to a human being, and then you get transferred. So, please, anybody who's running those old chats on their site, it's time for you to go and sit down and simply turn Copilot Studio on with the help of Solentive, and they can show you how easy it is to just turn it on, point at the website, and give a way richer, clearer experience to your customers and prospects than those old chats 1, 2, 3, 4 other.
We are seeing a lot of interest for those marketing use cases and call centers and the like, because the triage process of inquiries or all that sort of troubleshooting and whatnot for just basic things that could be done by an AI. We are seeing a lot of that come through. So and again, the solution is an out of the box kind of thing, right? Like with a bit of configuration and setup and all that sort of stuff, and making sure data's set up as well and stored in the right place. So
that's a key point you've just made there, and it was the one that I was wanting to say, and you beat me to it. It's realizing that these systems can be configured to point to specific data sets, to what I call a well, a well of information, which is curated and monitored in the business to make sure that you're getting, compliance guidance around taxation or construction, and it's coming from trusted source of information. It's not going to the web. It's not going out to those consumer-based AI platforms which are giving you hallucinations back and lies because somebody's given a lie to it and it said, oh, I've learnt the lie, I'll just tell you the lie. So it's going into that curated information. But that also, if I've got a moment, is key that you have technology like insider risk management. Microsoft provides that as part of Purview to ensure that a disgruntled employee doesn't poison the well, doesn't inject into that well a document which is counter to the policy of the business. And you've got all these advisors now working with information that's incorrect. And this is, again, that depth of what Microsoft gives, that they've thought about this and they give you the tech to actually go, oh, that employee who left 2 weeks ago, they put a document in there. Let's do a compare. Oh, that's out of compliance. That doesn't meet the terms and conditions of prior historic policy documents. You need to go and get that removed. I mean, I'll stop going on. I'm trying to stop being on my Microsoft soapbox here.
Well, look, I mean, it's more out of time. I would love to sit here for hours and get all sorts of anecdotes and stories, because I'm sure you're a Wikipedia of them, let's call it, to use your...
my favourite site.
There you go. I was going to say dictionary, but no, Wikipedia feels better. Yeah. Or encyclopedia would have been a better one. But
that's so old school.
I used encyclopedias.
Did you?
Yeah.
Which one? Collier's?
No, what was the other one?
Britannia?
Britannia, that was it.
I had Collier's. I read them.
Okay.
Yeah, because I grew up alone, basically. I did have sisters, but I'd get shipped to Australia every Christmas time to stay with my grandmother, bless her. She ran the Lighthouse, which was for the blind, and I'd turn up there and try and play piano. And the blind people would applaud, even though it was rubbish that I was playing.
That's ironic, given that you would imagine their hearing to be better if they're blind, and then
I made it bad for them. But she gave me, and I wanted to mention her because she is such an iconic individual to me. She was the one who'd take care of me from when school finished. I'd get put on a plane and shipped to Sydney, and I'd go and stay with her at the Lighthouse and take care of the blind people, and then she'd put me on the plane back. So many stories to tell there, but that's an iconic woman to me, living to 96, and yeah, thank you for being there, Grandma.
That's really beautiful, Phil. And yeah, I think it sounds like we need another podcast maybe towards the end of next year to sort of get the updates and some things that were overlooked that we need to dive deeper into. I'm curious, to wrap up our episode today, we're moving into 2026, likely when this is published. It will be January 2026. What are your ambitions for the year with Catalyst 345? What guidance and recommendation would you give for listeners to tackle 2026 with the adoption of AI and all sorts of things in mind?
I'd actually start with plan your holidays and get them booked in and get them robust so you know what you've then got as white space to go and do your work. I am of 65, so I'm at retirement age. And I do enjoy travel immensely, and it's a chance to see my little ones in London. It's a chance for dragging the other ones along with us. We're going to Greece with the ones who live in Sydney, and we're all going to have a family holiday for a couple of weeks in Greece. So that's my first guidance. Get your holidays booked in, everybody, please.
Beautiful. And that aligns with what you shared earlier in the episode about, just reflecting on family and quality time. So love that.
And I think there's quality time's an interest, if I can catch you on that one. I'm a believer in time. Just time. Quality time is, I think, this term that says, I'm going to give you 15 minutes now, and that's expired. You've got to have, and it's all going to be happy times. I think it's the times of the difficulty as well as the joy together that creates that bond. Going through both together as a family, not just, the kid's crying and giving it to the nanny. Be there, clean it up, be involved for the good and the bad. So I'm sorry, I think of quality time in a negative way. I'm much more about just time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the word quality is overlooked as a society because we think it's positive quality. But really, in a lot of ways, if you really dive into it, the quality time is probably through the negative stuff.
Correct. It is. It's through the messing and the damage and the broken knee or and them having difficulties at school and helping them through that as they helped me through my times, They were there when I had some maybe we'll save it for next year. When I had my difficult times through bankruptcy and back surgeries and things like that, they were there for me in those times, because by then I'd learnt to spend the time, not just those little windows of time that were happy times, the time. Nice.
So the number one priority is family and mapping that out for 2026.
Yes.
What's the second one?
For me, it's kind of you to mention the company name. I don't think too much about the company name. I think about me. I think that is the brand. And sorry if that sounds arrogant. Been around the industry for a long time. So for me, it's just ensuring I align my time to what matters, that again, I can get that peaceful night's sleep that I felt I've been successful in and around helping partners. I'm not much customer focusing. I always believe a partner needs to be there, like a Celentive, to talk to the customers. I love the stories that you bring, because that's the success. But helping organizations like yours in workshops, in keynotes, or speaking slots, doesn't have to be keynotes, or panel sessions. I love a panel session. Goes back to that debating heritage. Being a bit controversial in the session creates a much more lean in from the audience. They're much more engaged if there's a bit of controversy in the room.
Just on that note, by the way,
yes,
Celentive's next event, we're aiming to do an NFP panel to discuss how to monetize data.
Ooh, now
That's
you've got me.
Topic, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, monetizing data in a non-profit.
Because obviously the purpose is, once you monetize the data, you repurpose the finance to keep pushing the not-for-profit, right? But because it's seemingly I don't know, greedy if you start monetizing data and for profit and blah, blah, blah.
Yes, it's anyway, removing the non from profit if you're talking about money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was a little plug on that. So I'm glad I'll expect you there. Maybe I'll have to get you on the panel.
Get me on the panel. I'm definitely going to be controversial, because I find that when you do disagree with the panelist, even by intent, I've seen it, 600 people in the room in Perth once I did this, and everybody's phones went down and eyes went up.
Love a good conflict.
You know, and it was, I think it was justified conflict on the particular point that I raised, but it was just remarkable to see all those glowing screens drop and the conversation that ensued, and people coming up, I'm so glad you said that. I was thinking the same.
Okay, so that's the second one. So leaning into all that, so I guess mapping out the year with I guess your intention of like the people you serve, and for you it's the businesses that serve the customers. Anything else you want to share?
It links to the first one, which is having that diversity in my life too. I've got more time now where I can do the things that I want to do and say no things to others. So going riding with my mates. I'm joined their Wednesday riding club. So doing that, so not just riding on a Sunday, but riding on a Wednesday. Going to swim club with my wife. So we'll start doing swimming stuff again, because she was a great swimmer. She used to swim against Shane Gould. She was an awesome swimmer. And doing that with her. Coffee spots, we use this term called fika, which is Swedish for coffee time. So we do that now more regularly, 11 and 3. So those are the things I'm looking for in 2026. Holidays, doing the work that I enjoy through partners, and then maybe amplifying some of those areas I said, keep them busy type elements that I referred to in the keep them busy, keep them poor, keep them busy by doing more things, diverse things in my life too.
I love that. And look, I think I'm going to ask one last personal question on that. For me, if you were a 35-year-old male getting kicked off in your career in technology and the corporate space, what advice would you give me?
I'll take it from a couple of angles. If you're a technical person, go learn Copilot Studio now. There is gold in them there hills to go and provide solutions that are specifically tailored to the needs of customers. Seriously, I just came off one for a broadcast about Chemist Warehouse and how they use that to help in the HR scenario. I'm sure you at Celentive have got great examples of where you create really meaningful different benefits to a business by using that to tie in different data sources, to turn it into a generative AI instead of dealing. And so that would be one. In the business, if you're more of a business salesperson, start to learn how to use generative AI in your organization to help you with figuring out and refining your opportunities and your clients and the conversations they have with your clients, linking that into resources you can get to deep research your clients and be more informed as you enter into a human interaction with your client. I would really encourage any seller at the moment to be less remote and more in person, because people are craving it. They want that human contact. And I've experienced that very much in this new job. They just really appreciate you turning up. A couple of coffees, some sticky buns in a bag, sitting down and having a conversation for what's supposed to be an hour turns into 2.
So yeah, and that kind of demystifies the idea that AI is going to, or technology and AI is going to make us all withdraw to our bedrooms and just play video games and whatnot, right? Like,
I hope not.
Yeah.
No, I think.
Well, there's a thing. I mean, COVID probably highlighted that too, but we won't get into it. You know, the idea of like, you know, being more individualistic and just kind of in our little holes. And
yeah. It's interesting when I'm not getting into a whole social commentary about the 16-year-olds in Australia and no longer access to social media and things like that. You know, I do that Think You Know program, which is all about trying to help parents deal with children who are on social media environments. It just got a whole lot easier. It's like you can't do it anymore. So but they're finding ways around it. I'm seeing VPN sales going through the roof. I'm seeing other applications hitting the number 1 in the charts on the Apple Store that are not in the list, right? So anyway, I wasn't going to comment, and I did. Yeah, there was another little train that just disappeared, but see, I didn't get frustrated then.
Very nice. I'm glad to see you've grown and you're drinking your own champagne. Well, look, Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit here with you and just get a very small snapshot of a very long, deep story that you've lived. And I know we're just scratching on the surface, but I'm sure that our listeners would have got a lot, of different little gems out of that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your continuous service as well in this space in particular. And now that additional service of like sharing your personal values and your family values and how that affected you or enhanced you over time, because I think a lot of people really struggle with that, and I don't think a lot of people talk about that enough.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for sharing these thoughts. And yes, family. There's family that's blood and there's family that's work, and they
can be convoluted sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you,
Phil. We'll have to get you on in another year's time and get the updates.
All right. Bye, everyone.